At CEGIS, we believe governance is complex, it's nuanced, and it is for every Indian. And no better ways of unpacking this than to talk to the people who've spent their lives in a career of public service. For this episode, I'm delighted to welcome the Chief Secretary of Jharkhand, Ms. Alka Tiwari, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us in the middle of your busy schedule.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And maybe you could start by sharing what is it that drew you to a career in public service?
To be very frank, while growing up, I was not into public service. I was basically into academics. But as an adult, when I saw around me the impact government is having on the lives of people, and as you were saying earlier, not so much in the policy domain, but actually the frontline workers, their interaction with the common man and woman, how it is impacting the lives of people. Plus, I saw the vast canvas which this public service provides. That was quite exciting for me compared to the research work I was doing, compared to the life of academics which I was looking at. I found it very, very exciting. And definitely the prestige which is associated with the civil service, it drew me to public service career.
It's amazing, ma'am, and you've had a long and an illustrious career. Very honestly, many of us who've not been in the government service, we really don't understand how complex the work is and how many things need to come together for effective implementation. And over the course of your career, ma'am, could you share any examples where you and your team navigated a lot of complexity to deliver a public service? It could be in any sector, but where it benefited the common citizen. And then how did the citizens react to this?
See, as you're saying, it's actually very complex, especially if we talk of social sector. Whenever we want to handle any issue, it has to be a multi-pronged strategy. We have to attack it from all ends. Still, we cannot be sure of the results because in social scenario, 2 plus 2 is not always 4. It's like one example I would like to share from my experience as Secretary Women and Child Development in the state itself. Because Jharkhand is a tribal dominated state, and earlier, even now, we have this problem of malnutrition and anemia in women and children. Like the figures are quite disturbing. So then, as secretary, I was handling this subject, and we took a number of initiatives. Like, for example, we revised the cost norms because earlier, whatever we were providing in the Anganwadi centers, we increased the cost norms. Plus the calories which we're providing, because it is all in the government, everything is fixed. So we revised those specifications. And more importantly, what I saw is that in our villages, people are eating traditionally. They eat millets, they eat drumsticks, moringa, they eat cholai, which is called lal saag, and it is very, very nutritious. But in our supplementary nutrition scheme, these items were not included. So what I did is that we had an interaction with all those nutrition experts, and we created a basket of recipes incorporating all these things. So it was quite useful at that time. Plus, these people who were working with us, the Anganwadi workers, the Anganwadi Sahayikas, we tried to motivate them. We trained them, and the honorarium was increased slightly. But for them, it was a big motivation. So that is how, we tried to engage with all the people who were working with us, plus the women who were coming to the Anganwadi centers, the adolescent girls who were coming to the Anganwadi centers, so that we could improve their nutritional standards. So there was a significant impact at that time because how we were tracking our own data, and we saw that there was a lot of improvement in 1 or 2 years.
And the satisfaction, I think, clearly comes through. And I think, like you said, that's probably what has kept all of you motivated. One of our areas of interest is about how does the government use data? Because there is so much data you collect. How do you use it for decision making?
So whether it is Anganwadi centers, the data which is, collected there, initially by the Anganwadi workers, it goes to the CDPO, it comes to the state level, and then we analyze the data. Because earlier, when I was handling the department, this issue was always raised that the NFHS data and our data is not matching. But we tried to, upgrade our data in such a way that we felt more confident about our monthly progress report than about NFHS data. So that is the kind of accuracy we tried to build in the data. When you are talking of MIS, I would like to share, how we used MIS for fertilizer distribution.
Sure.
Because in Government of India, I was posted as Joint Secretary and Additional Secretary in the Department of Fertilizers. So apart from so many other things, I was handling distribution also. This is called movement division, where we make sure that adequate amount of fertilizer reaches all the corners of the country, all the fertilizer shops. Uh, so that required a lot of data collection. The state would post their requirement as to how much fertilizer they would require, different categories of fertilizers before each cropping season. Then we had to collect the data of domestic production in all the companies, government companies, private companies, cooperative sector companies. That data was collected. Then we had to plan for imports. So there are lots of fertilizers which we have to import, the gap between requirement and domestic production. Then we had to coordinate with the railways, the port authorities, and then we made sure that adequate amount of fertilizer reaches each and every shop timely. Because if it reaches after the sowing season is over, there's no point. And we had a very advanced system called IFMS, Integrated Fertilizer Management System. So that is how in the government, in the states as well as Government of India, we are using data, we are using MIS, and all the information is on the fingertips of concerned officers.
But ma'am, going back to an earlier point you said about the malnutrition case, where you said you motivated the Anganwadi workers because very often they are the last they are the people who are actually delivering, whether it's Anganwadi workers, school teachers, ASHA workers, whoever. And we find, and I think commonly, they have so much to do. And sometimes they work in very, very difficult conditions, very remote parts. How have you encouraged them, motivated them, built their capacity over time? And if you could share some examples of that.
Okay. So these, frontline workers, what you are saying, I totally agree with you. That unless these frontline workers are trained and motivated, we cannot deliver anything. Because whatever policy is made at the state government level or central government level, the ultimate person who delivers is these people only. So talking of Anganwadi workers and Anganwadi helpers, I remember we were, giving all the responsibility at that time to the Anganwadi workers only, because at that time we were giving freshly cooked meals to the children and to the pregnant and lactating mothers. So it was a big responsibility which was given to these Anganwadi workers. And we trained them. See, not only training of the content, like the job which is supposed to be done. What I feel is that, that confidence building, that motivational, they should feel that they're doing something which is very important, whether it is ASHA or Anganwadi workers or teachers. That is very, very important. In the context of teachers, I would also like to see, because I've seen many examples, I've been to many schools, and education sector is something which is very close to my heart. Teachers, you can make them go to the class because you have the system of biometric attendance and all. You can train them also because you can design the training curriculum. You can force them to attend the training programs. But what about the motivation? What about the attitude? What they feel about the child who's sitting in the class? Because if they're not able to relate to the child, and especially in the context of tribal societies, I'm sure that you would be aware of, how our tribal societies function, how the children behave, what they feel. So it's very, very important to connect with the tribal child. The child should feel that, whatever is being taught in the class is beneficial for me. Because if the child doesn't want it, he or she will not learn. He or she will not even comprehend what is being taught in the class. So the question of attitude, the question of being able to connect to the child is very, very important.
Thank you so much for taking out this time.
Thank you so much. So nice talking to you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma'am.